Welcome all you grots and gits. Welcome back to Happy Crump and Wargaming. As promised, today is the day we're going to start the tutorial of 10th edition. Now, there's a lot of things that have changed. I know everyone's going to be like groaning, oh, it's movement phase, we know how to move. Actually, chances are you don't know how to move because the movement phase is different now than it was previously. And we're really going to dive into that. And you're all going to learn a lot, and we're going to be really good at Warhammer, and we're going to have a blast doing it. And just so you guys know, I am officially repping all of my boys. So even though I might be playing my Custodes, I still rep the Orcs. I love them. And I will be running the Orcs in a lot of my individual tournaments as well. All right, so let's just get right into the game. So we are starting a little bit too early in the presentation. Let's start here. Okay, so we have a new movement phase, everyone. Things are completely different. There's some things that are the same, but there's some things that are very important things that are different. So pay very close attention as we go through. The movement phase is still broken down into the same steps, all right? We still have a couple different phrases, right? You can count as remaining stationary, and that is going to be if not a single model in your unit moved. If you have to move one model, the whole unit moved, okay? So remain stationary. This is the thing where you're going to get buffs from things like heavy weapons. So your heavy weapons will give you the +1 to hit if you remain stationary. Typically in Warhammer, we don't like to remain stationary because if you're not moving, you're dying in general. Although now that vehicles are a lot tougher, you might see vehicles remaining stationary. Then we have a normal move, which is you just move the full distance of your movement characteristic. Then we have the advance, which is you roll a d6 and you add that to your movement. Now, if you advance, you can't charge or shoot unless you have assault weapons or if you have a special rule that allows you to advance and charge. All right, this is all the stuff that you probably already know, but it's getting heavy in just a moment. Then you have fallback. So fallback is now different. So if you fall back, meaning you leave combat, you can only move up to the maximum of your movement characteristic. However, if you have to move over enemy models, you may move over enemy models only during a fallback move, not during any other type of move, unless you have fly. But if you do, you have to take what's called a desperate breakout test. So if you move a model over or through an enemy model, at the end of the movement, you have to roll a d6 for each model that moved through said unit. And for every result of a 1 or a 2, that model is dead. So it's no longer a stratagem, the desperate breakout, like it used to be. But now it's just anyone can do it whenever you want, but you're going to die on a 1 or 2 when you do it. And model just dies. This also happens if you are battle shocked when you fall back. So this is actually the trick, right? People are sleeping on how powerful battle shock is because like, oh, well, it goes away in my command phase. Yeah, but if you ever need to like fall back or something, it's a really big deal. So if the NIDs like make you take that big battle shock test and you really have to fall back and you fail it, you might lose a bunch of your units just by falling back. It can be really, really powerful. And then reserves. So reserves no longer need to come in by the end of the third battle round. Reserves can come in whenever the heck you want. So if you want to leave a unit in reserves all game, hello. Anybody heard of Inquisitor Cortez? Well, I'll make a separate video on him, but basically he gives you the ability to regenerate extra CP whenever your enemy uses CP, and you can just leave him in reserves and all game. And interestingly enough, with the new rules in 10th edition, the new commentary, he can use his ability even though he's in reserves the whole time. That was not something you could do in 9th, but you can in 10th. So there is going to be some tricks for people taking units in reserves and just leaving them there all game. Just be ready for that. Now, one thing I did fail to mention here, and this is actually one of the most important things of the entire movement phase now, is the fact that you can move through your own models, which is so dang amazing. So dang amazing. So these are the details, okay? You can move through friendly models as if they were not there. This is extremely important because once we get to the combat or the charge phase, you'll notice pylons and consolidates are a lot more difficult now, and it's pretty heavily nerfed. So it's really important that you can move through your own models. Monsters and vehicles must go around other monsters and vehicles. You cannot move through monsters and vehicles. However, it looks like normal units can go through monsters. It's a little interesting how the way it's worded. So yeah, that was a little strange for me. So that's the way the cookie crumbles, though, everybody. So let us take a look at how this works on the TTS. I got a few different scenarios drawn up for us here, and we are going to learn some cool stuff. All right, so we have the Custodes versus the Orcs, because, you know, those are my dudes. We have a couple different scenarios here. So we have a Beast Boss and Squigosaur who now counts as a monster. This is an extremely powerful thing. This guy can just move straight through the grots with his big movement of 10. So he's no longer movement blocked by his own units. This is so unbelievably good for monsters and vehicles, or even normal units, right? Because look how much movement I just got there. Otherwise, if this was 9th edition, you would have to move the Gretchen very, very carefully, 5 inches each, in order to get them completely out of the way of the Beast Boss. And if you were spread out in such a way that was really annoying, you could make it so your Beast Boss actually couldn't get out of the way. And you can move block yourself from getting a very easy charge. But now, in 10th edition, we just step right over those little grots, those little gits, and we come right into play. In another scenario, what we see with this is that our cavalry are also much stronger now. Because cavalry, no one ever wanted to take mounted, as it's called in 10th, or cavalry, as it's called in 9th, because moving them was so freaking frustrating because you couldn't go through buildings just like everything else, and it was a huge headache. But now that our cavalry can just move straight over our own units, they have become significantly more powerful for us. Because now we can just take their 10-inch movement, doop, and then come over like this, or, maybe like 3 inches this way. So they can actually just hop right on over, which gives them the ability to dramatically get up the field. Now, Squighogs in specific, by the way, remember they ignore all movement modifiers, which is really powerful as well in this game. But yes, so your cavalry and your mounted units are going to be way more powerful now, just because it's a lot easier to move them. That doesn't mean it's easy to move them. It just means that it's a lot easier to move them. And just to finish the demonstration here, these guys can go right over the Squigosaur as well, because normal movements can move through vehicles and monsters. Monsters, however, cannot move through vehicles and monsters. So this would be illegal. This guy could not move through this truck. He would have to go around the truck. Okay? All right, so that is going to be the first part. Let's look at the next. I'm going to head back to the PowerPoint now. Boop. And here we go. All right. So moving over and through terrain. You can freely move over terrain that is 2 inches in height. What is 2 inches in height? Well, I'm sure there's a bunch of things that are 2 inches in height. But you must climb up and down terrain that is more than 2 inches in height. When you're climbing up, you just have to count the movement up, count the movement across, count the movement down. So climbing really sucks, and it's a big problem. Fly is also fairly nerfed in the new edition. Fly is nowhere near as strong as it used to be. It's still useful. Like if you have fly, it's still a good thing to have fly, because now with fly you can still fly over your enemy units, so it's impossible to move block them still. So it's still a good rule. However, now you have to move the diagonal distance. So if you're going through a ruin, for example, you have to fly up and over, which is a little troublesome. So the cool thing about this, though, is they did not nerf the fly with infantry. So if you're a jetpack infantry, such as a Storm Boy, or like your Venatari, or your Assault Marines with a Jetpack Marines, then you're still feeling good because you can move straight through the building and you're faster, and that still works pretty well. But a lot of your big units with flies, they're not going to be nearly as mobile as they used to. And so I'm going to go ahead and demonstrate just why that is. So let's check out TTS here. Okay, so we have our Storm Boys hanging out right here in this ruin. So they're going to be led by Zagstruck. And Zagstruck is going to say, let me just put a little movement on here so we can know how far they're moving. So Zagstruck wants to get to this objective right here. Well, now we're going to have to measure diagonally. And TTS is a little bit janky, so it can make it kind of challenging to measure diagonally sometimes. It's not 180 inches, I promise. So if we were doing a horizontal, let me see if I can just turn this to 2D real fast. For Zagstruck to get here, it would be 13 inches. Oh, no. There we go. So that's a 12-inch. You see how that works? That is a 12-inch movement, even though 12 inches is actually further than the base. So he's losing approximately 1 inch of movement just by moving to here, right? So this is a 12-inch movement because of the diagonal. But if it wasn't diagonal, then you could move him even further because it would go to the back of this base. So he would end up being maybe like right here instead. So that's the way it works. For jump pack infantry, it's not really that big a deal. If you have, say, a big monster with fly, I don't think I have one on here, so just bear with me. Let's pretend that the Squig Boss has fly, just for the purposes of demonstration here. And you want to fly over this. It's actually a really big deal now. So we would go, he was going to have to fly 6 inches up. So he flew 6 inches, or 7 inches up, and then he would have to fly 5 inches over, and you have to fly down. Whereas in the previously 9th edition, you would just move him like this. Remember, I'm pretending that the Beast Boss has fly in this situation, just so I can demonstrate for you guys. So 9th edition movement rules for fly. You would pick up your model with fly, and you would just fly them right over. However, now it's very different in 10th edition. You have to measure the diagonal distance. So he would have to go, there's 7 inches up. I missed it, sorry. He would have to go the 7 inches up. Then you're going to have to go the 4 inches across. So we're at a 7 plus 4 is 11 inch movement already. And then you're going to have to move the 6 or 7 inches down. So to get to here in 10th edition, 6 plus 7 plus 4, so let's go 11. So that's 17 inches. Versus if this was a 9th edition fly keyword, he would just have to go 12 inches, right? Or 11 inches, actually. So it actually takes him 6 inches of extra movement now in the new edition than it used to previously take him. That is an issue for fly, so just be aware that you're not going to have to worry nearly as much about your fly models. So all of your greeter demons are going to be a lot less speedy going across boards as long as you have some reasonable terrain. So that's fly, guys. Love it or hate it, that is what we have now in the new edition. And let's check out the next part of the movement phase. Reserves. Deep strikes cannot arrive turn 1. Well, that's going to be from the General's Handbook. It doesn't say so in the core rules, but it'll be that way. And it must arrive within 9 inches away from any enemy models. That's exactly the same. Strat reserves must arrive wholly within 6 inches of any board edge and more than 9 inches away from any model. This is similar to previously. However, you can no longer do the shenanigans where you would defend your deployment zone because you could come in as close as you want if you're coming off of your own board edge. That was a 9th edition thing. Sadly, it's gone. I really liked it, but it's gone. So strategic reserves did get a little bit less good. However, with the addition of the new rapid ingress stratagem, which we all love, oh my gosh, I love rapid ingress, it's really not that much worse because now with rapid ingress, you can come in at the end of your opponent's movement phase. That is sick. So if your opponent finishes moving and it's turn 2, you can bring your dudes in, and then in your turn, you can move them and then shoot and charge, which is so powerful. So the rapid ingress is a really big boon to movement, whereas strategic reserves are just inherently a little bit nerfed, but they also still have that benefit. So it's kind of cool. Okie dokie. Next up, let's talk about transports. Transports are different, my friends. Transports are very, very different. There's a lot to talk about for transports. So now you can get out of a vehicle before the vehicle moves and can act normally. This is exactly the same as it was previously. So what a lot of people will do is they'll start their units in transports basically just for 3 inches of bonus movement because you get out within wholly within 3 inches of the vehicle, and then you do your normal move. So some people will do that. I will do that. And then, but this is the big difference here. So now you can get out. Everyone can get out of vehicles after the vehicle does a normal move, not an advance, a normal move. And then you get out wholly within 3 inches of the vehicle. So on average, if you're moving 6 inches normally, well, you can get yourself an additional 6 to 8 inches of movement by putting them in a vehicle because you let the vehicle move and then you get out wholly within 3 inches. And the vehicle is going to be going 10 to 12 inches on average. So it's actually a really big deal. You can get your units in much better positions. And so that's actually very, very cool. Now, the deal is once you get out, you can't move, but you can shoot and you can't charge unless, and this is the caveat, unless your vehicle has the assault ramp keyword. The assault ramp keyword is coming, generally speaking, on your Land Raiders. Yes, Land Raiders are usable again in this edition. They're usable, and that is really cool because they were horrifyingly bad last edition. So we are excited to see that Land Raider is usable. So the way the Land Raider works, though, is once it moves, you can get out. You still can't move, but you get out wholly within 3 inches, and then you may charge. So that is also a very, very cool thing. But that only applies to units with the assault ramp keyword. Normal vehicles, you can get out after they move, but you cannot charge. But you can still shoot, which is really strong for delivering like flash kits to the enemy or something else to the enemy. I think that's the only shooting, or burner boys to the enemy. That would be a good point. Good point. Or any shooty army unit from any army. Now, Embark. Every model in the unit must end a normal, an advance, or a fallback move wholly within 3 inches of the transport. This is actually not super easy to do. And I'm going to show you in just a moment when we go back to the TTS view. It can be actually quite challenging to get every model in the unit to be wholly within 3 inches. Disembark. Every model must fit wholly within 3 inches of the transport. The disembark is generally fairly easy. Not a problem. The embark can be a bit of an issue. You have to place your models fairly strategically to make sure you're going to get them all wholly within 3 inches on the embarkation. And then you have the caveat that you cannot embark or disembark in the same turn. No problem. Before I go to TTS, I'm just going to finish up on vehicles here, okay? Destroyed transports. How do we deal with our destroyed transports? When your vehicle is destroyed after rolling to see if it blows up your deadly demise, then you will place all the models wholly within 3 inches, and you roll 1 dice for each model in the unit. Every one is D3 mortal wounds. This is a huge improvement for multi-wound models, and probably worse for 1-wound models that are in vehicles. Because the way it used to be is if you rolled a 1, you died. So you would never put expensive units in transports because you're just going to roll 1s and you're going to lose an extra 100 points or so just because you had a bad roll. Now you can put your big boys in transports, whereas small boys actually might be a little even riskier, which is a little bit interesting. So there it is. Then the emergency disembark. All right, this is no longer a stratagem. You don't have to spend CP on this. But if it's impossible to place your models wholly within 3 inches and outside of engagement range of enemy models, you can do it wholly within 6 inches, just like the stratagem previously. But you're going to take D3 mortal wounds on rolls of 1 to 3. So this is going to be chipping people out. But it's cool because you no longer need to spend CP to be able to get that 6-inch disembark. So we like that. So it's gonna be a little more challenging to make sure you surround every single vehicle really well if you're trying to wrap and trap them so that everyone just automatically dies, because you're always going to be able to disembark within 6 inches. So I actually do like that. I think it's a pretty cool thing. So let's go back to the TTS. I just want to make sure I know what I was going to talk about so I don't flutter around for you guys. Yeah, we were going to show the embarkation, the disembarkation, and then the emergencies. All right, cool. So we are heading back to TTS right now, TTS view. Cool. All right, so I've set up a few scenarios for us here. If we look right here, there was a charge, and these Custodian Guardians actually were able to surround these Beast Snagga boys. If these Beast Snagga boys want to fall back, it's pretty simple how they do it. So what they're going to do is it's their turn. They're going to say they're going to fall back. So they're each going to move their movement distance, their movement profile, which is 6 inches now, outside of the Custodians. So now this was fine. These guys are all good. They just fell back. No problem. However, these 3 dudes are going to have to take a desperate breakout test, because when they fall back, they're going to have to move through the enemy models. Now, you only make the desperate breakout test for the troops that are moving through the enemy models. So it would just be these 3. So essentially what we would need to do here is we would need to roll those dice. And on rolls of 1s and 2s, they would die. So I would lose one of those models. That's the way it works. Not too bad, right? Make sense? Good. Now, if this unit happened to be battle shocked when they made that fallback, you would actually roll a 1 through 2. You would actually roll a desperate breakout test for all of the models. So battle shock is actually a really big deal. So if there was a way to get them battle shocked before they did their fallback test, whether they failed their battle shock test in the command phase or if you had an ability to make them take a battle shock test, every single model would have to roll for that desperate breakout. So keep that in mind. Now, I've got before we get to this one, let's look at the truck here. All right, so if we want to get out of this truck, let me grab some Snagga boys. There are 3 scenarios. 1, you can get everyone wholly within 3 inches of the truck. So you would just place them something like this and make sure that they're all wholly within 3 inches of the truck, which at this point they are. Then they can act and move normally, which means they can move their 6 inches, or they could advance. So we're probably going to advance so we get them on the objective. So that's one way of doing it. You can get them out. Now they can move, they can shoot, they can charge. But let's say we don't want to do that. So let's put these guys back over here. Now what we can do is we can move the truck. And the truck has a movement of, it was either 10 or 12. I don't remember. This is, I'll look that up later. It doesn't matter. But for this purposes, let's say it moves 10. So now the truck moves up 10. Boom. Now we can get the Beast Negaboys out. And exactly the same, they get out wholly within 3 inches of the vehicle. Now they cannot move, shoot, or charge. Or I'm sorry, they cannot move or charge. They can shoot. If there happens to be anything there, they can shoot with their pistols. But they cannot move, right? Or they can't move or charge here. But as you can see, you can get a lot more movement from them now. And then in your next turn, they can then do their act normally. So it actually gives you a lot of extra distance. Now, if you had, like, say, Burnaboys in here, Burnaboys, you could actually take the truck up and then move it, like, over here, let the Burnaboys out, and then let them start shooting, assuming you can get this truck out of engagement range right there. So there is a lot of utility for these vehicles now. This is the hard part, is actually embarking. Disembarking is easy. If my unit is right here, and I want to get them all within this truck, I'm going to have to roll in advance, because this guy can only possibly get there with a 7-inch move. Actually, I don't even think he can get there with a 7-inch move. Let's see. Can I get his base wholly within? No, a 7-inch move would not get him wholly within. So you're going to have to roll an advance roll. This is where being able to move through your own models really matters. So let's say I roll 2 inches on my advance. I'm going to move this guy first, because otherwise you're going to move block your own dudes. So this is how we have to kind of make this work, because it can be very tricky getting every model in the unit wholly within 3. And we'll just kind of shift this guy maybe right here, and then this guy can come right about here, and then this guy can come right about here, and then this guy can come right about here, and then this guy is going to go over here, and then this guy is going to go over here. So you can see that it actually can be quite tricky. So if I had rolled a 1 on my advance there, there's no chance. Even though the guy was within 7 inches, you actually needed a 2-inch advance to get him an 8-inch movement to get everybody within the guy, within the range to embark upon the truck. So it can actually be a little bit challenging, but no problems there. Last thing I want to show you guys is this desperate breakout test. So we are trapped inside the truck, and the Wardens and Mr. Trajan do what they do, and they kill the truck. The sequencing here is as follows. Truck's going to see if it blows up. Oh, it rolls a 6, so it does blow up, and they take some mortal wounds. No big deal. They're not going to die. Then what happens is you put a 3-inch bubble around your truck. All right, cool. So now I place my guys, right? Well, you can't. There is literally no way to place your models in here being outside of engagement. Maybe you can put 1 here. Oh, actually, this really sucks. So this is actually a nightmare scenario. Because you could put like 1 or 2 right here. Now let's say our custody friend was a little bit nicer to us and blocked us from putting those guys out right there. Because that would actually be really, really crappy because you could only place 2. So there's no way to place them within 3 inches. So what you have to do is you have to do what's called a emergency disembarkation, which expands your field to a 6-inch bubble. So then we're going to place all of our dudes down. 6-inch bubble. We can get everyone down there. Boom, boom, boom. No problem. Everyone is within 6 inches. But now our desperate breakout or our emergency disembarkation test is on a 1 through 3. They'll take D3 mortal wounds instead of on just a 1. So this is a 1 wound unit, and there are going to be 10 models in it. So as you can see, this can be quite devastating. For every roll of a 1 through 3. So this unit is now going to take 4 D3 mortal wounds. 3, 4, 5. So 5 of them died. So against 1 wound models, this emergency disembarkation can be really nightmarish because they just lost 5, which is actually a lot more than they would have lost in the previous edition. In the previous edition, they would have lost 3. But if you were, say, disembarking like Custodes, for example, right there, you took 43 mortal wounds, which is going to be 5. Let's roll to see how we saved on our 4 Philopane. Yeah, so you would take 1 mortal. You would take literally 1 wound if it was Custodes, right? So there's benefits and negatives. It's just very different. So be aware of how that works, everyone. Remember, the big key takeaways from this new edition are going to be, it's very simple to move through your own models. We love moving through our own models. Fallbacks can cause desperate breakout attempts. Vehicles and monsters have to go around vehicles and monsters. Everyone else can move through your own units as is normal. This is awesome. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this. There are a few tactics you need to learn about how to interact with vehicles and everything. And then we'll be back in the next round with probably, I believe, the pre-game shenanigans. That'll be like talking about our infiltrators and our scouting moves. There's a lot more things to talk about, the more advanced topics, such as how do we screen and how do we move block. We'll talk about that in future videos. For right now, these are the fundamentals of movements, and I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Happy Cruppin', all of my fellow wargamers. Bye-bye.